The Methodist Church has a long history in Malaysia, particularly in the peninsula. But interestingly, it is the result of the mission outreach of American Methodism. The early missionaries came from India and worked principally amongst the Tamil community. The Malaysian Methodist Church is thus structured according to the American system that includes districts rather than circuits, and a bishop in addition to presidents. Ministers are appointed to individual churches rather than to circuits. The Methodist Church is divided into several conferences, largely determined by language and ethnicity. Thus, the peninsula has 4 conferences: the Chinese Annual Conference, the Tamil Annual Conference, the Trinity Annual Conference, English-speaking, and the Sonoy Mission Conference, Malay-speaking, that works with the tribal peoples. Each conference has an elected president, with one bishop as the focus of unity of all the conferences. Why, one might ask, is the Methodist Church in Britain working in partnership with Malaysian churches? The story begins in 1970 when a young married Anglican couple heard God's call to come to work in Kuala Lumpur. The husband lectured in the University of Malaya and his wife became a homemaker and mother to 3 children. Both became deeply involved with planting, growing, and helping to lead a Methodist house church. After 17 years of fruitful ministry, David and Rhona responded to God's new call to return to the UK with their 3 teenage children for the purpose of theological training in preparation for a new phase of ministry. The needs of the Christian church in Asia were very much still on their hearts, and so in the middle of his doctoral studies, David spent some weeks visiting Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia to discover ministry opportunities. It was then that David came to Sabah to the Theological Seminary and met the then Bishop of the Basel Christian Church, Reverend Tu Nu. Sometime later, Bishop Tu visited Britain and the Methodist World Church Office. I remember some years later you actually came to England, to UK.
Yes.
You came to visit us. Do you remember that?
I remember, yes.
And you made a big impact in the Methodist Church.
I still remember vividly that, you see, the response of the Methodist Church in Britain, the man I met, is very friendly and very supportive.
Yes.
And immediately he wanted to say yes to establish a kind of partnership with us. Yes. By sending you to as lecturers at SDS, of which I appreciated so much. I remember how we started the partnership, you see. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think you had a private interview where I think it was someone called Akuila.
Yes, Akuila, yes.
And you said to him, we want David and Rhona in Sabah. Yes. Please send them to us. Yes. Is that something?
That's true. That's true. I still remember. And later on, they visited us. You see, I think a year later or a few months later.
Sure.
And he gave all this, you see, assurance that you and Rhona will be sent as missionary lecturers here.
And so it was, with remarkably little fuss, we found ourselves on the way to Sabah in 1996 on a special assignment to teach at the seminary and for Rhona to assist with counselling and children's work. Our coming to Sabah was the beginning of a productive partnership that has taken a variety of shapes that include mission partner support, that's our story, SALT scholarships, locals in mission, special grants. We will continue our story later, but first let's explore some of the other contributions. The Methodist Church believes in supporting and training people as a core means of church growth and development. This is the focus of the SALT scholarships, which are intended to provide financial support for key people in a cross-cultural context. Here in Sabah, the scholarships are being used to train lecturers for Bible colleges, and in the future, a librarian for the college library. Let's meet some of them. Jain Salting and his wife received a scholarship grant for master's level theological training. They have since served as lecturers and as director of evangelism
in West Malaysia.
Patricia Galidao is in her final year of postgraduate New Testament studies with a SALT scholarship. Madwis is an experienced pastor with a family who is doing a master's in Old Testament studies.
The main purpose of my studies is to be a lecturer
Thank you very much for all who are supporting me with my studies, and I pray that the Lord will bless you all.
The Methodist Church in Britain also provides grants to kickstart local initiatives, or in this case, to allow a transition from a mission partner to a local person. Thus, Pastor Reka Malangjang has taken on responsibility for the family ministry project initiated by me at STS.
My name is Reka. I'm from Sabah. I want to say thank you for Methodist Church in Britain for your support.
Without doubt, a major part of the Methodist support has been channeled through ourselves as mission partners, and so we need to tell something of our personal story and ministry. So let's begin with Rhona and hear her story.
I came to Sabah as a trained counsellor and an experienced literacy teacher and children's worker. For the first 3 years, I helped with a local English-speaking church as a counsellor and as chaplain for the Boys and Girls Brigades. I also helped to transform a traditional Sunday school into a more vibrant Praise Kids and provided a literacy program and training for the church kindergarten. At the same time, I headed up hospitality at STS, the seminary where David was teaching. But ministry is not static, and as the seminary grew, there were growing needs and opportunities in the college, and so the focus of my ministry moved from the local church to the college.
Now it's time for David's account. When we came to Sabah in 1996, I served as a full-time lecturer at the Sabah Theological Seminary, or STS, in the Malay language department. After a short 3-month language orientation to refresh the Malay I had learned at the University of Malaya, I started with a full teaching load, mainly in my main discipline of practical theology. This mainly involved subjects such as worship, preaching, and pastoral theology and church administration. Although there were 1 or 2 English-speaking churches in Kota Kinabalu, we immersed ourselves in the Malay-speaking congregations in order to better understand the culture and absorb the language. From these early beginnings, we became deeply committed to working with the indigenous tribal groups. Because of my earlier academic background and experience of writing scientific research papers, I found myself attracted to writing and publications. The starting point was the production of a multi-authored book published by the seminary in English. I was responsible for writing one of the chapters, editing the whole book, and preparing the layout for the printer. This early dabbling with publication led me to rewrite and publish a book on worship in English entitled Living Worship. After that, I became aware of the desperate need for Malay language publications, and over the years have assisted with writing or producing more than a dozen books in Malay, all of which have been eagerly purchased. 3 of these books I have written specifically to serve as texts for courses on worship, preaching, and church administration. Early on, we discovered that writing and publishing books is only the beginning. The books also need to be marketed. We quickly found that Christian bookshops were a very inefficient way of book distribution in the local context. So instead, we took the books to churches and conferences. Over the years, this became an important part of our ministry, and quite apart from marketing books, there was also opportunity for networking, pastoral care, and fundraising through book sales. We have now been in Malaysia on and off for over 40 years, the last 16 years on a special assignment supported by the Methodist Church in Britain. What have we learned? Firstly, to work overseas in a different culture needs a strong sense of calling. We experienced God's clear calling to Malaysia in 1970, and that call was again renewed when we came to Sabah. It is God's certain call that sustained us through some difficult situations. Secondly, there is need for flexibility. Rhona and I came to be involved in teaching and theological education, but year by year, new opportunities arose that we never dreamt of. We learned to seize opportunities that God prepared.
Thirdly, when doors shut, new ones open. There was at least one occasion when our work and ministry seemed to be coming to an end, but the Lord opened new opportunities. From the ashes rose new life. Fourthly, what really matters are people. We may have been involved in setting up projects, producing publications, building buildings, but what really counts is people. Our permanent contribution will be in lives touched and changed, gifts and talents discovered, lives empowered and transformed, a baton passed on into safe hands.
Finally, I was much struck recently by a verse from Ecclesiastes that reads, "So I saw there is nothing better for a man than to enjoy his work, because that is his lot. For who can bring him to see what will happen after him? We have indeed enjoyed our work and are content to leave the future in God's hands."